I'd like to call to order the Appointments and Ordinance Committee meeting Wednesday, November 10th at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by A&O Committee. If any other persons are present are doing the same, please notify me at this time. Please remember all items on the agenda may not be considered or discussed at this meeting and may be addressed at future meetings. I'll take roll call. Councillor Gilmore is absent this evening. Councillor Jarvis is absent this evening. Councillor Dolan.
I am present this evening.
Councillor Elmer.
I'm here.
That's good. We appreciate that. We also have two councillors that served on the Charter Committee, Councillor Forgy and Councillor Wheeler. Welcome to both of you. Councillor Wheeler is here for dual role tonight, and we appreciate him being here. I'll continue this meeting with the five of us, and if anything changes, we'll go forward. Can I have someone accept the meetings from October 13th?
So moved. Second.
Made by Elmer, seconded by Dolan. We have no public hearings this evening. And so that will make things go a little bit quicker. The first ordinance that's here for discussion tonight is the ordinance to prohibit the use of non-emergency unmuffled comprehension release engine brakes on Deerfield Mill and River Streets and Bernardston Road. This has been brought forward once before, and I think, and he'll tell us in a minute, I think it's been altered a bit, and it is now resurfaced with Councillor Wheeler. And Councillor Wheeler, thanks for doing this. Is it your intention, and I'm just trying to find this, I was not at Chair's meeting, and they said that they were going to put this on a future meeting, and then it showed up on my agenda. So it's all good. It's fine. I just didn't know your thoughts before you tell us your intentions.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me and getting right to it. I did bring this forward last year, I guess. Can't remember if all of you were on the committee. I think it was different committee members. But it's basically what happened is a constituent came into town hall and asked Kathy Scott, why engine brakes aren't, why there are no signs prohibiting engine brakes in town. And she said, well, it's funny that you should ask because a counselor had actually suggested that and then pulled it back. So I talked to the constituent. His name is Christopher Eads, and I believe he's the call-in user at the meeting. And I hope that Chair Gwynn, if you would like, I hope that we could recognize him at some point. So basically, I heard from him that there was demand. I thought it was kind of a common sense thing, and it's something that affects my life. I'll be getting off the council in a couple months, but it does affect me as a constituent. And I narrowed the scope of the ordinance so that it really mainly includes 5 and 10, as well as where it curves around to River and Mill Street. So 5 and 10 on both ends. Flat roads that are basically highways, but then when they come into the city, they become really residential. And so it doesn't include Route 2 or the mountain, anything like that. But really, I want to let Christopher speak to it because he was the one who asked me to bring it back.
Christopher, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. I just got in just a minute ago. I just caught that beginning.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
If you
thank
could
you.
if you could do me a favor, could you just state your name and your
Yeah.
address for the record?
Yeah, Christopher James Eads. I'm at 94 River Street, Greenfield, Mass.
All right. I appreciate you stepping forward as a concerned citizen, and I'm glad that we can listen and try to have a plan. So, if you could, can you give us a brief synopsis, maybe bullet points on your intention and why we should consider such a thing?
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it short and sweet. I myself am a CDL Class A truck driver. I drove over the road for 5 years. Now I'm just driving local. But I can tell you that these compression engine brakes are used, they're mainly set on the truck. They're not your brake. It's not your air brakes. You have a second set of brakes, and that's what you use in your town when you're driving on flat surface. But the compression brakes are to use when you're going down a mountain steep grade with a heavy load.
I
So
lived
that's
on
when
the
you flip it.
Yeah, I lived on
again?
the Mohawk Trail for 10 years. I heard them a lot.
Oh yeah, they use them and they don't always necessarily need to use them. That's why I'm here, because being a truck driver, I know when you can use them, not use them. Most towns and our cities inside the city limits throughout the country, that I drove all the way, I'm not going to get into the lower 48, let's just say,
Sure.
2011, 2015. And when I went into most cities and towns, I just turned them off. I'm going slow enough. I don't need to have them on. And the fact that they're using them in town, they're either going too fast or they're just using them personally. What I believe they're doing is they're trying to intimidate, the truck driver. I know when I was a truck driver, you really, we call them four-wheelers, feel like they're in your way. You want them to get out of your way because you got a long way to go in a short time to get there. You're making your money on the road, and that's your office is. And these cars slow down, so they come up behind you, and they're not allowed to blow their air horn, of course not, but they're using in town here, I notice, is they'll accelerate and then they'll let off real fast on their acceleration, and that causes their air brakes to sound off. It's literally like an air horn almost. It's a very loud growl. And they do it at all times of the day. And that's the point, is they're not just doing it in the daytime in the construction zone. They're doing it late at night. I'm a former Marine veteran, and I have PTSD diagnosis. And when they wake you up at night, it's difficult, and I can hear them. But it's not all about me. I've talked to a lot of other people in town that they don't understand what they are, but they have issues with also the loud brakes. So all I'm saying is, let's see.
You're doing fine. So,
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
just
exactly
looking
what
at
we
my
need.
notes here.
Oh,
I want to
perfect.
hit any other points that I have. The folks they're driving these trucks. They necessarily don't have to use those engine brakes in town. That's all I'm saying.
Can I ask you?
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I just think that they're just being inconsiderate. Not all truck drivers do use them. I do recognize that. A lot of guys don't use them. A lot of the dump truck drivers do use them. Mostly the local guys. I call the drivers over the long haul over the road professional drivers. The guys I call local, they're local day cabs. They're the ones kind of in a hurry. The dump trucks get paid by the load, or the truckers, they get paid by the mile. So they're going to run that load anyway from here to Denver, and they're going to get that load. But the local guys are the ones that have the issue with their Jake brakes, and they're using them because they're virtually in a hurry and they want to get you out of their way. And it's unprofessional. And like I said earlier, I don't think a lot of people really understand what that noise is. They probably think it's just part of that machinery. Like you hear a train coming in, you hear the clanking of the train, and you hear the whistle blow. They see it's a big truck, and they make a lot of noise. But they don't need to make that noise. A lot of that air brakes, compression brakes, engine retarder, whatever you want to call it, there's multiple names for it. That's used for going down steep mountains with heavy loads, not in town on flat roads, where residents are at home with their families having dinner and have to hear that. And it's very disturbing to hear it. So that's all I could say.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Can I ask you a
Sorry.
question?
Sure.
Is there an instance that they would need these brakes on these flat surface roads? This is not in my wheelhouse whatsoever, so I appreciate your expertise. Is there a reason?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Negative, sir. Negative. No reason at all. That's right. When I started the conversation, I said they have their conventional brakes, their air brakes. You have brakes, and when you're in town, you shouldn't be going so fast where you would need these air brakes. It's kind of a show-off thing. It's kind of like, listen to me. You know, they can make those compression brakes louder through the pipes. There's adapters they can put inside there, mufflers on their pipes to make it even sound louder. I know this from being a truck driver, going into truck stops and talking to a lot of truckers. A lot of guys bragged about how awesome, you know, what they would do with their trucks. And not all trucks have them. Some are louder than others. That's the only reason they're on there is just to help you slow your road, that lowers the compression in your engine. So when you're going down a mountain, it helps brake you. Instead of wearing down your brakes, and you don't have to pump your air brakes constantly and run them out. If you ever traveled the country, you'll see down these steep mountains, they have runaway ramps. And
Right.
sometimes trucks lose their brakes and have to go up those runaway ramps. But it's just another added safety harness basically for that tractor to have that on board.
Well, thanks for that information. Let me just ask, does Councillor Dolan or Councillor Elmer have any questions for our guest before we go back to Councillor Wheeler? Anything? All right.
I did have a question. Yeah, I see that some of our neighboring towns have banned them in the entire town, and this has been now narrowed down to certain streets. Is that because there are streets in Greenfield, like coming down the Mohawk Trail, where you're coming down a hill, where you might actually need them for safety purposes?
Yes, I believe that's why Councillor Wheeler might have wrote that down, because he didn't want to say, hey, a Greenfield altogether. Because actually, I brought this up to some of my truck driver friends, and they immediately said that, no, it won't work because you got Greenfield by the Route 2 coming down by, you know. I said, I understand that, but about in the city limits, you can put these signs up. That's all they are, is signs, and you put them up. And when you're on these roads, all truck drivers read every sign. Trust me, you look at every sign, because you don't want to hit a low bridge. You don't want to go across the bridge. You can't take the road.
All right. Thank you for that. Councillor Dolan?
Yeah, the other place that I've heard this complaint that isn't on the list is, of course, Mountain Road. In your professional opinion, would you consider that a place where really they need to be allowed for safety? If you're familiar with Mountain Road, it goes, you know, down to the General Pierce Bridge from the top by Poet's Seat.
Which road is that? I couldn't quite hear you.
Yeah, it's sorry, it's hard to describe these things. If you start at the Poet's Seat parking lot, right at the top of the ridge, it goes down to the former the former and soon to be General Pierce Bridge, over to Montague City, and it's a steep grade.
Yes, that probably again. Actually, that was brought up to another driver I was talking about this too. He brought that road up also. So that's why you can't ban them sometimes from the whole city altogether. It has to be certain, you know, inside the city, like on the flat roads, basically, Deerfield Street, you know, where they don't need them. That's a good point. That road over there is probably somewhere that you have a lot of dump trucks going up and down there, I believe, for
right.
Unfortunately, there's a low train overpass on Cheapside, and so trucks can't go that way, so they have to go around it down the mountain.
That's what happens on Adams and Lamplack do the same thing, because if they're going to Berniston, they can't get under the bridge. Well, thank you for that. Councillor Wheeler, do you have, we're understanding the rationale. I see the ordinance that you've put together. Have you vetted this ordinance with any DPW, police department? Just trying to figure out where we are on the do my homework chain.
Thanks. Nope, I haven't gone to Robbie or Marlo, but I think it would make perfect sense to invite them to a meeting to have them weigh in. I didn't actually, I forgot this part of your question earlier. I didn't expect this to come to your agenda so quickly. I was kind of thinking it would come in December.
So did I.
But it's good because Christopher's here and I'm here and we can have
that's
this
good.
initial conversation.
So let's, so you would have no objection then if we, all we're right now is having a discussion on this and presentation, that we will put it back on the agenda for December. And at the same time, I will request from the clerk's office an opinion from our DPW and our police, or public safety, I should say.
Yeah, that
because
makes perfect sense.
I agree with Councilor Dolan. There might be other roads that were not because they have a hill, because there's also the one that goes over to the terrible bridge in Turners, the metal one on the backside. There's that hill. But I'm thinking out in precinct 2 even. You mentioned Burniston Road, but we've got Leiden Road, and Leiden Road has a lot of straight traffic. You have Country Club Road. So I just don't know. Like I said, Adams Road, where you would think we would have this problem, we really don't, because there's not a lot of residential. The industrial park is highway to residential. And then they don't continue down Adams to Lampblack to River Street because we have the low bridge in Burniston. So it kind of, but I would be curious, and that may be one of the things that we can request from Marlo or the police. Are there other roads? Can we do it a little more? Is it easier to do this with exclusions or inclusions?
Right. And if I could, I'd like to know what Marlo has to say about that, because my understanding is, like Christopher said, that you have to have the ordinance in order to put up the signage. But just because there's the ordinance doesn't mean you would have to put up the signage. So, there's kind of that wiggle room that you guys should talk out with public safety. And, I'm happy to be there for this conversation. But my feeling is that, I put in the places where I know it's a problem. And if other counselors or other constituents feel there's other areas where it might be a problem, by all means, have that conversation.
Excellent. That's, that was what I was thinking. Just, I'd like to get their opinion saying, hey, this road is, like I said, Councilor Dolan got me thinking, do we keep excluding roads or do we keep including roads? I don't know which way, because then we start going over, you've got the roads coming out of the fairgrounds. Those are all pretty hilly, so those would probably be an inclusion. So that's where I don't know where the best would be. So let's ask them and find out.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I'm sorry. There's definitely some roads that they do travel on consistently, and that would probably be the roads we need to concentrate on.
Thanks.
That they use.
Go ahead, Councilor Elmer. You're muted.
I would think that if you want to enforce it, you should have the signs up, and the signs will be on the streets where it's appropriate. You sort of have to do it. Is that the exclusion route? I think you have to do it that way.
Or the inclusion route. So there we go. That's what I'm not sure. But yeah, let's talk to Marlo. I think Director Warner would be, the one for that. Does anyone else from the A&O committee have any questions on this?
Not a question, but I think this is a reasonable thing for us to be doing, and I would be in favor of it.
Yeah, I think it has merit in that when it was first came up, I don't think we were as well educated on the fact that it's not about brakes and air brakes. It's about this secondary system, which if it's not necessary, it's not necessary. And then there's always the piece, and that's why I want to go to public safety, about enforcement. where does that default to, and how does that work? So we'll ask that question. Let's try to turn this around, Councilor Wheeler, and get you some answers by our December meeting.
All right, thanks. I'll plan on attending.
We'll make no proposal. We'll just keep this as a discussion tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right. Feel free to stay because we have all kinds of fun things coming up in the meeting tonight. All right. The next we have mayor's appointments and reappointments. Councilor Elmer, would you like to read that motion?
On page 11? Sure. Order number FY22-042. The City Council moved that it be ordered that the Greenfield City Council, pursuant to Charter Section 2-10, affirms the following appointment and reappointment by the mayor. Susan Ahern Bellemere, Public Library Board of Trustees, term expires June 30th, 2023. David Singer, Zoning Board of Appeals, term expires December 31st, 2024. Majority vote required. Do you want the rationale?
No, I need a second.
I will second.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. If you want to give the rationale, that would be great, Councilor Elmer.
Well, I'm just reading this. I have no personal knowledge. Charter Section 2-10 does not call for a formal vote to accept the appointees, but does say that at least 9 members shall be necessary to reject an appointment proposed by the mayor.
All right, and remember, we affirm the what is the word? Appointment or reappointment. So, is there any discussion from the councilors? Any counselor? David Singer, you are here, not for this, but I imagine you're here to help with the charter pieces. Would you like to say anything before we forward this on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals coming back as a reappointment?
Please vote yes.
Thank you, David. All right. Any other discussion from the committee? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a unanimous recommendation for these affirmed reappointments. All right, that brings us to our discussion on the city charter. And let me tell you where we are. Article 4, which is the school department, which we have not worked on yet. As you all know, the school has a meeting in about 6 minutes tonight, and so they cannot be here this evening. I have heard that the president of the school committee is forwarding a list of their recommendations and their opinions on the charter suggestions. So we are not going to talk about Article 4 this evening at all because it's the school section. Does anyone have any comments on that? Anybody?
I do have a question.
Councilor.
Just like a point of order. Are we going to get to Article 7 tonight, do you think?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so because I think some people are here because of Article 7.
Yep. And we won't get there tonight. I mean, we could get there tonight. We're not going to get there tonight. 6 is a very busy section. We are going to spend most of the time on 6. So I will give my word to anyone that is here for 7. We will not address 7 this evening. If we get to the end of 6, which we won't do 7. Is that fair to the committee? Remember, we have to list, and that's why there's a disclaimer that says all agenda items may not be considered or discussed at this meeting and may be addressed at future meetings. The only way we can legally do this is to list everything that's left. Because if we are going to address something from 7, we couldn't talk about it if it's not on the agenda. So we will not be getting to 7 this evening. If anyone's waiting for 7, 7 will be at a future meeting. I can't even tell you it will be the next meeting because it depends on how long it takes us to get through 4 and 6 and finishing 2. Any questions from my committee? The other thing that I will just address now too, because it's under old business later, but Article 2 legislative branch, we are still trying to narrow that down on getting some legal opinion, which I did not formally request prior. So now I will do that. So that's why it's kind of still there. I thought my request was sent out, but I didn't formally request it. So I'm doing that now. So that's why we are still have 2.8, 2-8 is still there. And now we know why we're not talking about 4. Now I will open it up to our in-house, Councilor Forgy. And it's nice, Councilor Forgy, because there's only 4 of us here this evening. I don't think that Councilor Wheeler is still with us. And he might pop back in, but Councilor Forgy, feel free to speak openly this evening. So we're going to start with Article 6, Administrative and Organization. That would start is 6.2, Merit Principle. Councilor Forgy. You're muted.
Page 34.
Yeah,
I want to go back to 33 and just say that there were no changes from the current charter. So for the record. And
just so we all know, and I appreciate you saying that, if we take a no vote, a not change vote, like if we suggest something and we're not going to change it, it does not need to be voted on by council. It just means we're not recommending a change. So we can avoid this. It's happened twice. We don't need to say, I vote to not do anything. That doesn't, it was pointed out early. So when we pass on things, it just means it didn't need to be changed or we're not taking it up. All right, moving on. 6.2 merit principle. Councilor Forgy, what's going on here?
There was the committee suggested that after the word examination, the phrase education and certification be added in order to broaden the extent of the detailed information available for the mayor in order to evaluate merit and fitness. So it's an addition in language.
Any concerns on this piece from my committee? Yeah. David, any opinion on that? It's pretty simple. You're muted. You can all leave your mics open tonight and just talk freely because we still can't hear you.
Yes, I agree with Councilor Forgy.
All right. Any discussions on this? Councilor Dolan or Councilor Elmer would like to put it in form of a motion?
I move to accept the changes suggested by the Charter Review Committee in section 6-2.
Seconded.
All right. The motion's been made and seconded to, after the word examination, to add the phrase education and certification. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Any no votes? Seeing none, we will send that with a unanimous recommendation for that addition. 6.3, Department of Municipal Finance, Councilor Forgy.
This is during the course of the committee's deliberation, we did need to get a legal opinion to clear up some of the concerns that existed with the assessor's piece. Going back to the charter, in essence, this is asking for language to be substituted, and the new language, the Department of Municipal Finance shall include accountant, treasurer, collector, and board of assessors. So that would all fall under the municipal umbrella.
NB 6.3B.
Yes, that's correct.
And delete by law and substitute ordinance.
Yes, that's correct. That is in the section B. So bylaw is just an outdated term. Ordinance is the correct legal term.
It would be by ordinance. Okay. Any questions on this? David? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Dolan.
Sorry if I might be being dense, but in 6-3, what's the substantive change?
I can help.
David?
Yeah. So I know. So it's delete the second sentence of 6.3. So that's the sentence that starts with the director and ends with the word. Well, yeah. So I guess delete the whole sentence, and then the legal opinion said add this sentence.
The Department of Municipal Finance shall include within.
I think this is a remnant. When we wrote this, when the charter was first written, I think this is a remnant of this town government.
Okay.
And I think the lawyer astutely recognized that and said, no, that's not really how we're set up. So it's a good cleanup, you know.
All right.
It makes it correct. This is not
going
correct.
along with what Councilor Dolan just said. Someone needs to help us here. Where are we starting and where are we ending the old piece? I see that we're putting the Department of Music shall include. Are we getting rid of everything from the to the third the? Where are we going with this?
I would say now, let's put it this way. In my report are exhibits. One of the exhibits is the letter from the city attorney. So I don't want to, you can all look at that and see if this is correct. So I'm not standing on it that strong, but I think what I'm saying here is take the whole sentence out, because the powers and duties and all that stuff is in another section. So you don't need to say that phrase, which makes it seem like, well, are we going to keep it after the semicolon? But no, it's the whole sentence. I believe that's my memory, but I while you're talking, I'll go back to the letter. Take the whole sentence out, make this the smaller sentence as a substitution. But I'll look at the opinion while you guys are talking. Let's see what.
Because I'm just saying the next piece with the bylaw substitution for ordinance, would that even be in there if we adopt the new one? You know what I'm saying? I don't know where it ends. Councilor Dolan?
Yeah. So my reading of it is just that second sentence, starting with the director of municipal finance and ending at the asterisks. That's my understanding. And reading it a second, third, fourth time, I think I get what's happening here, and Councilor Forgy and Mr. Singer can clarify if need be. But the Board of Assessors includes elected officials who are not under the Director of Municipal Finance. They are not subservient to the director. So the proposed language clarifies that and groups these things together without a hierarchical structure. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Yes.
So
it could be that it ends right there.
So we are substituting from the Director of Municipal Finance through the word regulations.
No, through the
word double asterisk Board of Assessors.
So it's to the semicolon.
Correct.
Councilor Dolan is saying. I want to find the letters.
My reading is the director of municipal finance can't assume the duties of the board of assessors because that is a different kind of power.
Correct.
It's elected officials.
Yeah, it's through. I have it in front of me. I have the letter in front of me.
Okay.
It's through the semicolon. I'm sorry. The phrase, and it may have such additional powers, duties, and responsibilities remains. So you take out the sentence from the word, well, I have to now, I'm trying to play with my screen. I'm sorry. I'm not so adept.
Is it start with the mayor shall?
No, the director of municipal finance, that phrase, take a pen and cross it all the way out until you hit the end of the phrase board of assessors. And then click delete. And in its place, put the phrase that's at the bottom that's in there that says the Department of Municipal Finance shall include within it the town accountant, the town treasurer, the town collector, and the board of assessors.
We don't need the word town. That's obsolete. So you just remove that.
Or city, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or substitute
Okay.
city, whatever you want.
Councilor Elmer?
Yeah, I'll move. I'll make a motion that we do that, replace those words, but instead of town accountant, town treasurer, and town collector, make it city accountant, city treasurer, and city collector.
Well, my
So
form
that's my
has
motion.
that, so that's why I'm in the bottom, but not in the top. So you are correct. All right. Do we have a second on that?
I will second. Would it be helpful if I read the text as proposed?
Yes.
Okay. So my understanding, and tell me if I've made a mistake here, Bill. The director of there shall be a Department of Municipal Finance responsible for the performance of all of the fiscal and financial activities of the city. The Department of Municipal Finance shall include within it the city accountant, the city treasurer, the city collector, and the board of assessors. And it may have such additional powers, duties, and responsibilities with respect to municipal finance related functions and activities of the city from time to time, provide by ordinance. Sorry, my cadence was a little off at the end, but I think I got all the words.
That's correct. What you just said is correct.
So I will second that. Yeah.
Thank you. Second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send that recommendation. Do we want to make a separate motion for the bylaw word, or did that get taken care of?
No, that needs to be said. I'm sorry. I'm not a counselor. Sorry.
No, you can speak openly.
Yeah, that was not, Councilor Dolan spoke only to that particular section. I think it's B. Now you need a separate motion to change the word bylaw to ordinance, and I believe it's C.
It's the same paragraph.
No, it's not.
No, it's a different.
No,
It's a different
it's
paragraph.
B. I'll move
I
that in section 6.3b that we delete the word bylaw and replace it with by ordinance.
That's right. Thank you, Phil. I'm moving 3 things around my screen.
Do I have a second on that?
Yeah.
Second.
Councilor Forgy.
Sorry, don't mean to interfere, but I don't think you need city by ordinance. You need just city ordinance. I think that's what it should read.
Is that what it says?
Accordance with general laws, city ordinances, city ordinance.
City ordinance. Yep.
City ordinance.
City.
Yep.
I'll accept that with a friendly amendment.
All right, I will amend it.
Yeah, just amend it.
Sorry.
No friendly amendments.
I'll just restate the motion is that it would replace the word bylaw with the word ordinance.
Councilor Forgy, are you suggesting that the word city is redundant, so you just use the word ordinance?
No, she's saying the
No.
word by is redundant.
Okay.
We
Unnecessary.
don't need city by ordinance. We just need city ordinance.
I see. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any objections? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, we'll send that recommendation. All right, in B, because the top one, we just fixed A, right? Is that what we fixed?
The
Yes.
fixed day,
Right, and then we just changed B.
yes.
There is a piece of B, where is it? City collector, city treasurer, the director of municipal finance shall be responsible. City. Okay, it's interesting because the one above it had town and the one below it all had city. So we are correct. All right. Moving on. There is nothing to change in 6.4. So 6.5.
The committee discussion was around the here's those wonderful words again, may and shall. So that if you say shall, it makes it mandatory. If you say may, it's discretionary. So that's where the committee's discussion took place. If you also make it shall, then you are committing the mayor to actually hire someone, and therefore you're committing money to be spent on that position. If you let it as may, it's discretionary for the mayor. It can be done. It's really, what is your preference? That's really which way you would like to see it.
Did our current mayor weigh in on this?
That's a good question. I'm
David?
not sure. David?
I don't remember.
I was just
I don't
curious.
either.
Obviously, these have to go to the mayor, our current mayor, and if for whatever reason she doesn't like mayor shall, this can still be knocked out. I'm just saying it gives her the ability that if there's an overstep on our part, it's got to go through her office anyways.
I think it's more of an economic issue for the council.
Mhm.
If it shall, then you have to have a budget item for this that has to be funded every year. And, that could be $40,000, $50,000 plus benefits. So I viewed it as a council, sort of a council discussion. Why wouldn't the mayor want that in her budget? It just helps. It's just another person that helps her do the work that she needs to do. So, I mean, she may not, but from a perspective of good governance, the mayor wants all the help she could get, but the city council doesn't necessarily want to shall pay for it. So I think that's why I think it's as much a city council decision, spending decision, as it is a mayor wish list decision.
Councilor Dolan?
Yeah, I'm fine with this change. I'm not sure how much it does. I'm not sure how we would enforce it. If the mayor ever chose not to do this, I'm generally in favor of having an economic development person. So I'm fine with making it shall. I don't think it makes a huge difference one way or another.
Thank you. Councilor Forgy, let's change hats for a moment. As the chair of Ways and Means, what's your thought?
My thought, believe me, I'm very much in favor of strong mayor. My thought is that by making it may, it gives the discretion to the mayor. She's not being held to a standard in a charter that may or may not be met. May gives that discretionary. See, at this point, the council can't stop the mayor from exercising her appointment, her prerogative to appoint just by the word may. They can't stop that. But shall is a tough one because,
With with the
What,
shall,
you know, what do we do? What if the budget can't handle it? You know, it's all that kind of stuff.
let me ask that question because Counselor Singer started it. If the word was shall and we don't have the money to fund it because it's a shall, does that become a situation where then we're out of compliance with the charter because the council doesn't fund it?
Correct.
Where may, Counselor Dolan?
Okay, sorry.
A little bit tangential, but staring at this, I can't help but think also that the names of job titles change over time. And by locking it into the charter, if in 20 years we're calling this position something very different, it might end up being confusing and hard to change.
Right. I don't have a big problem with changing it to shall personally, but I want to make sure we're there. David?
Okay, I'm just going to be the policy wonk and tell you the policy stuff. That's all I'm telling you. Know, you can decide, but the original charter group was concerned that the mayor being an elected position might not be a person who had economic development and marketing experience or skills, and that the person would be a politician, which is fine. But if the mayor doesn't appoint an assistant for economic development and marketing, it's not earmarked in the budget, then policy-wise, is that okay or not okay?
Right.
So if you say shall, on the other side of it, if the council's trying to cut things out, it would be hard pressed to cut out completely that line item since it's a shall in the charter. So it's a policy, so that protects the position from that end as well. So it protects the position in terms of, I'm a citizen, do I want this specialty person to be there to help the mayor? I am the mayor, do I want the council taking this out of the budget? So those are the reasons to have the word shall. If you want to keep the word may, it doesn't matter, but it means that the city council cannot fund that position for sure. And so the mayor could say, I want that person, and the council could say, I'm not funding it. And guess what? The mayor loses that person. So that's the difference.
Counselor Dolan?
I would like to complicate it just a little bit. There's nothing about the language here that indicates that this position has to be full-time. I'm thinking of our tree warden, who, I mean, that's a position that we're required to have, and it goes to someone with some expertise in the DPW, but that's not that person's whole job. So in theory, I don't know, the mayor could say anyone on staff was their assistant for economic development and marketing. I'm coming around to the idea that we're trying to legislate the structure of the executive branch. And again, I'm totally in favor of this position. I want more of these positions, but like, I'm not sure if the charter is the right place to do that. And I'm not sure if section 6-5 actually does anything one way or another.
Counselor Elmer, you're quiet.
I'm trying. Is this MJ's job? Is that what we're talking about here?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah.
Although she's the director of economic and community development. So it is and it isn't.
Change the title, change the hire.
You could punt on it. It's nobody's made a fuss on it, but I'm just giving you the policy reason. So you can think about it.
No, that's what we're doing.
I guess I sort of favor may, because it does. Otherwise, it's sort of an unfunded mandate, right? Or then we have to fund it if it's shall.
It could become an unfunded mandate. You're absolutely right.
It has that potential, but
you could put $1 in there, right? So you're funding it, but it's not really doing anything. Yes, it could be that.
So we're not going to send a unanimous recommendation, no matter how we do this at this point. But
well, I could be persuaded. I could be persuaded.
Well, do you want to be persuaded here on the floor or the council? That would be our recommendation can be your heart right now and say may, and Councilor Dolan can say shall, and I can split the difference, and we can send it to council saying that it needs to, further discussion. But, we're an advisory just as the committee was an advisory. So do we have a motion? I would recommend that we make a motion and we send it forward, and it needs discussion. You know what I mean? On the council floor. That's where I would go if we're not going to have a mandate. Councilor Forgy, would you agree?
Yes.
You should also get the mayor involved before you go to the floor, I would think, right? You want the mayor to weigh in on this too, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's one that, except, she'll have obviously she will have an option to weigh in on all of this. So, but if someone wants to make a motion, or we can,
So I will say, I don't think I'm going to move this or second it, because I don't think it accomplishes anything one way or another. So if that changes anyone's decision, given the members of the committee who are here.
So you're not going to make a motion or second it on either piece, on either direction.
I'll make a motion. I'll move that we leave it as is. Leave it as may.
Okay, then that means we take no action, because we don't need to vote in May, because May's already there.
Well, if you want to move it along with a mixed recommendation,
Then change it to shall.
Yeah, but we'd need someone to make that motion.
You can make the motion and vote against it.
All right, I'll move that we change it to shall.
All right, so the motion has been made. Do I have a second? I'll second the motion. I'll second the motion that we change the word from may to shall. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion has no recommendation, because we have one no and 2 abstentions. I wouldn't tell you legally where that goes, but we will move that along. Okay. Thank you. It's those easy ones that get difficult. 6-6, Councilor Forgy?
Just a point of order for a second.
Yeah.
How is an abstention counted?
An abstention, I don't know when there's 2 abstentions on a third person vote. We're gonna have to check Robert's rules, but normally an abstention goes to the majority. Council, Sarah?
Think? No, I think you need yay votes to get something passed. An abstention will not get something passed. It may not be no, but it has no. If you're looking at it from how do I get my motion to pass, an abstention does not give you a vote to pass a motion. So if there's 4 of you and you needed 3 of you, and you all abstain, and as you went along, it was 2 yes, 2 abstentions. You don't get the vote because you didn't get the 3rd vote.
Thank you.
That's how I would look at it. It may not, like, I remember Brickett trying to tell me it was like a yes vote because he didn't vote no, but I think it's more of a no vote because it carries the same result, which is that you didn't carry the day.
Right.
So you carry the day. So you made a motion, it didn't carry, you can report it or not report it, I guess. I mean,
Sure. Yeah, no, and we'll take it up. All right. 6-6, Department of Central Maintenance, Councilor Forgy?
I think I have to do that one, Chris.
I do. I agree with David. I think it's important. There is some background to this.
So this was kicked down the road from 210. Again, I'm a wonk, so just look at it that way. I'm never going to do this again, so you won't have my wonkiness to have to deal with again. So in 2003, as the charter was changing, there was this committee that was set up by the select board to deal with something called central maintenance. The objective of the central maintenance was to take monies for building purposes, for structural purposes, out of both the city budget and especially the school budget, and put it in a separate place, and have both the school side and the town side work together to decide together how that money would be spent. And here's the reason why that came about. In the funding, chapter whatever funding for schools, there's money earmarked for maintenance. And the school system is supposed to use that money for maintenance. But the school committee has control over that budget. And if they don't spend it, what ended up happening during my time on the school committee was that the school committee would spend that money on curriculum or on other things besides maintenance. And the city would come to the school department and say, this field house is a piece of garbage. This is a piece of garbage. That's a piece of garbage. Why aren't you using your money to make those corrections? And so at the time, there was definitely two different parties that were, the town side would not work with the school side on anything. So this idea came up to do a central maintenance committee where the school side can vote under that statute, chapter 7137M, because they control the buildings, and say, you know what, we'll allow the funding, the state funding money, to go to the city side as long as we have some say in how that money gets spent on the school side. That's not going to be used for fixing the town hall. It's going to be used for school stuff in some proportion to the monies that are received by the city from that money. And it wasn't completed by the time of the, that the charter changed. I'm saying this with love. I'm sure I gave this to Mayor Forgy, who said, you know, thank you very much. And I don't know if you ever read it, Chris, or if it was on your, on your radar, but I know that Mayor Martin ultimately looked at it, and he created a central maintenance department and you did it, the council did it by, created that by ordinance. So that's all good. The only thing I don't know is, as a matter of law, the school committee would have had to vote to allow their money to go into the city budget. And I have no idea if that vote ever took place under Mayor Martin. So I point out that there's a report that is attached to the, there's a Central Maintenance Committee report from 2002 or 2003, which doesn't necessarily have to be adhered to because you already have a central maintenance department. However, if you want to be wonky legal, the question is, did the school committee ever vote to allow that to happen? If they didn't, they should. If they did, God bless. And if they didn't, and you just want to say, okay, well, that's not really a charter change. That's more of a, let's explore through the clerk's office what happened. That's fine. If you find out that they did the right thing, section 6.6 could probably be, it could remain just to consistently support the fact that you have a Department of Central Maintenance, and this is the way that it was created.
I have two things on this, David. Did not Central Maintenance somehow merge with DPW last year or something? Didn't we do that by another ordinance?
You did, and that's fine. This allowed you to do that.
Okay, I'm just making sure that we're on the same place. And secondly, I don't see any change here. I think we do refer this to a check and balance to see if the school committee did vote to do this, to make sure that we're correct. We can send it to the school department and we take no action at this time because there's not really a change. It's more of a clarification. Yes, David?
Yes, I am passing on oral history to you all to take into the future, so you understand. And the report also puts it in there so that there's a history of did this or did this not happen. That's the only reason it's in there.
Okay, Councilor Dolan?
Was it the committee's intention to cut section 6-6? Because it also is not, now that we have this department and it exists and there's an ordinance governing it, it's not really doing anything one way or another again, right?
Well, you can, so the charter's mandating a central maintenance committee. If you were going to amend it, I would say there shall be a department of central maintenance as provided by ordinance.
Yeah, I would say, Councilor Dolan, that it's one of those place markers. Like it says there's central maintenance by ordinance. If we took it out, there didn't have to be central maintenance again. We go backwards.
Well, interestingly, it mandates that we have a Department of Central Maintenance, but it doesn't mandate that we have a central maintenance committee. Is that somewhere else that is elsewhere in the charter?
I think
can I help? The central maintenance committee was us, a group of people formed by the select board to do the same thing that the charter committee did.
Okay.
So
similar result.
So it has disbanded. It's done its job and we've moved on.
Correct.
Yeah.
So why don't we send this for clarity at this point? Why don't we find out, Councilor Forgy, if you'll work with me and the clerk's office to make sure we ask the right questions of the school department to see if that vote was taken on the financial end of it, coming out of not coming out of A&O, but coming out of Ways and Means.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a financial clarification. And then if we find that it wasn't done, then we could recommend that they do that. And then, as Councilor Dolan just suggested, we could bring this back up and get rid of Central Maintenance Committee and such and shorten that up, because we don't need that, as that piece is gone. But at this point, let's do the homework on that. Does that sound acceptable to all parties?
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, 6-7, planning and construction of municipal buildings and other. All right. It was discussed within the committee whether or not the phrase time to time should be changed to a specific timetable, at least twice a year, etc. Thoughts? Councilor Forgy?
Thought was time to time leaves it really open, and there may not be a meeting in a year, and there may be need for it, but it just gets overlooked because nobody's picking up on what should happen. So at least twice a year. If you have nothing on your agenda, you can, cancel the meeting or whatever, but at least make it mandatory that this committee meets 2 times a year.
David, any further thought?
Well, let me give you some back again, being the wonky guy. So once upon a time, this was it. This was like a great, big, wonderful addition to our community that remember we had we renovated the elementary schools, and the middle school got into trouble, and there was no real supervisory committee in town or in the city overlooking all that. They were left to their druthers. So we decided that this would be a great place to help the city manage short-term and long-term construction of municipal buildings and other facilities. You could actually plan ahead, go to the council and say, here's our 5-year plan, here's our 10-year plan, these are the capital expenses, whatever. I think that's still an important feature, but as you'll see as we go down, and we didn't go this deep into it, but it seems that now projects have their own building committees. And so those are the committees that do the oversight of everything that's going on, and this committee really doesn't have that participation. So especially the second paragraph of B was important to change. And the question would be then, do you want them to meet as needed because the amount of work that they need to do isn't really such a big deal? Or as Councilor Forgy says, hey, wait a minute, if we leave it to that, the laziness will step in and they'll never meet, we'll never get anything done. So let's at least say biannually, even if there's no agenda, the committee has a responsibility to check itself out once or twice a year. So I think the time to time is the change is for that reason.
I would agree along that line. There's two pieces in that. First, if we had biannual or twice a year, then it says the committee shall file a written report at least annually. So at the end of the year, after their second meeting, they could say, we had our two meetings, the agenda items, there was nothing present. That's the report. I mean, but it gives it an identity. You know what I mean? It gets it there. Councilor Dolan?
I just want to make sure, and maybe this is my density again, but just trying to read this closely. The proposed change is not, it doesn't look like it's to the meeting schedule.
It is not.
Literally, it's to meeting with representatives of municipal agencies. So it doesn't create a biannual meeting. It mandates at least twice a year meeting with municipal agencies. I would ask, does that mean every municipal agency, or does it mean any municipal agency twice a year? Like, do they have to meet with the library director twice a year? Do they have to meet with the police chief twice a year? I just want to make sure that we get this language precise.
I think the goal was, again, this is a department that's going to give you and the mayor a heads up about what's coming down the road. So if you ask them to meet, I think it's very narrow, the time to time. If you ask them to meet, let's say once a year, it means they have to meet, they have to file a report, they have to tell you something. If they meet time to time and you have a chairperson or a committee that doesn't really want to do anything, then you can't force them to meet because the charter doesn't make them meet except at their discretion. So maybe planning will fall by the wayside because you have a poor committee that's taking advantage of that language.
But I think, to Councilor Dolan's point, this says to meet with municipal agencies, not bringing the committee together for a meeting. Councilor Dolan?
Yeah, I would, if what we're aiming for is making sure that they meet, I would suggest the language, the committee shall meet at least once a quarter, period. The committee will meet with representatives of municipal agencies to evaluate the need for additions, renovations, etc., as necessary. I don't want the police chief coming to a meeting just because they need to meet twice a year with a municipal agency. Like, I don't know how likely that is to happen, but they should be meeting regularly, but they should only be inviting municipal agencies when it's necessary.
So yeah, I agree, Tim. We could do something like the committee shall meet, twice annually. End of that thought. They also will meet with representatives of municipal agencies to evaluate.
May I make a suggestion?
I like it.
Councilor Elmer.
What if the language? I would suggest that you put the language about how often they meet in that last sentence there. The committee shall meet at least twice a year and file written reports at least annually. Then you haven't tied the frequency with each department. You know what I mean?
So get rid of the time to time. They say the committee shall meet with representatives from municipal agencies to evaluate need. And then you say the committee shall file.
Shall meet at least twice a year and file
written reports at least annually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that sound acceptable? Councilor Forgy?
All right.
Councilor Elmer, do you want to put that in the form of a motion? Because I think it covers what the three of us talked about.
Can I make a suggestion for quarterly, actually?
And let's talk about it quarterly, biannually. Yeah, I have no horse in this race. So what's your thought?
If it's a committee, I want it to be meeting. There's lots of work to
Yeah.
do. I mean, it
I'll
seems like
make
they
a
meet
motion
almost
that
monthly. So, sorry, go ahead.
I'll move. I'll make a motion that to read that the sentence starting "the committee shall" would read "the committee shall meet quarterly and file a written report at least annually with the mayor," and yada yada. Pick it up from there.
Except you've got to get rid of it above.
Well,
we could leave from time to time.
You could leave from time to time.
Leave it the way it is.
Right.
Okay, because that time to time
Is a different
corresponds with.
Nothing
You're right,
modified.
Phil. Yep.
I will
understand.
second Councilor Elmer's motion.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for 6-7B, changing the sentence starting with "the committee shall." Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Phil, are you with us?
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
I've got bad bandwidth.
No, that's all right. I just can't miss your vote tonight because if you go out, because there's only 3 of us. Any abstentions? Seeing none, we're going to send a positive unanimous recommendation for that change as stated by Councilor Elmer, and for clarity with the clerk's office on this one. All right. Moving on now, whenever any construction work, starting there, Councilor Forgy.
Yeah, the mayor suggested this language. The committee agreed with it to delete the entire paragraph. And if you see at the bottom of your page, it's replaced with whenever any construction work on a municipal building or other facility is authorized, the Planning and Construction Committee shall monitor the work through contact with the Department of Planning and Development and the Building Inspections Department.
Any discussion on this?
I will move to accept the changes as suggested in footnotes.
Do I have a second on that, Phil?
I'll second it.
All right. The motion's been made and seconded in 6-7B, changing the paragraph starting with "whenever" with the paragraph as recommended by the mayor. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a unanimous recommendation for that. 6-8, Department of Human Resources. Councilor Forgy?
It's a definition piece. Just in describing the Department of Human Resources, the suggestion was made to delete "shall include the following" and to replace it with the following: "shall include but not limited to the following." It broadens the responsibilities on an ad needs basis.
Any concerns on this? Councilor
I'll
Elmer?
move that we make that change.
Motion's been made and seconded in section 6-8A, the functions line shall change as recommended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we'll send a unanimous recommendation for that change. 6-9, Board of License Commissioners. Councilor Forgy.
I'd love to have David talk about the wonkiness of this one as well.
David Wonky.
David, I don't know. He might not, he might be muted. I don't know what's going on. So I will basically back it up again, a little bit of history. I think it's self-explanatory if you read the discussion piece at the bottom. Board of License Commissioners were always Board of Selectmen. And now the Board of Selectmen don't exist and we have a mayor. So the licensing board falls under the appointment of the mayor. The charter empowered this commission with powers exercised by a select board. So it's recommended that the city council draft an ordinance specifically outlining in details the powers, duties, and limitations of a licensed commission to ensure public confidence in the commission. This is where, where I see this is room for an ordinance. It really needs, the language needs to, the powers of the licensing commission need to be addressed in an ordinance at this point.
Councilor Dolan?
Yeah, just giving this another close reading. It does seem like it mentions duties in this section that were exercised by the Board of Selectmen. And if we wrote an ordinance that limited those duties, we would be contradicting ourselves. So don't the ordinance would be contradicting the charter. So don't we need to remove that reference to duties formally performed by the Board of Selectmen?
Again, this is open at this point. It's in a discussion piece, but I'll defer to David. I see his hand up.
Yeah, sure.
So, Councilor Dolan, you're absolutely right. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. So let's just think about what we're trying to accomplish. Let me broaden your thinking a little bit, because you're all right. Mm-hmm. So the commission punted on this. They basically said, let's just give these people the same powers as selectmen. The only thing here's the wonky piece of it. The selectmen are elected. The license commissioners are appointed, and yet they have a lot of power. They have the same power as an elected executive under the town governance system. There's nothing, do you want that? Do we want that to be the case? Maybe, and I mean, the committee did not, we had a lot to do. I didn't go into the law and see what I liked or didn't like. So, but it seems to me that these commissioners have a ton of power and they're not elected, whereas the selectman was elected. So so the answer to your question is, if Councilor Dolan did his homework, read all the powers of the select board, and then looked at what licensing commissions in cities by ordinance are allowed to do, and you said, holy shit, a select board had way more power than these cities do because there's a mayor and the mayor has this power. I mean, and so you might say, we got to get rid of that sentence and we have to say, as provided by ordinance or as provided by this or that. This was not a thought out provision. It was basically, let's slide what was to what now exists. So your committee, I would suggest, this is not a take it to the council at this point. This is
some homework. Yeah.
And decide whether, now maybe the Board of Selectmen's powers are fine. Maybe you just need to add and by ordinance. Maybe you need to add nothing, but maybe you need to add a lot. But I just knew that after the charter was created, it was like, holy moly, you got all these people that have the same power as an elected official. Is that okay?
So we need someone to, Councilor Dolan, did you have a thought? I don't want to.
Just that this is a daunting project because there are so many relationships with with state law here, and there's so much comparison work that needs to be done with other cities who may keep this in different places. I mean, I think this comes down to one of my concerns about the council long term is who does this work, because I think this is essential. And I would very much like to see the powers of the board of license commissioners proscribed as much as possible. I'm just not like, we don't have legal aid. We can hardly get legal opinions when we ask for them. I'm just not sure who's going to do it. I think it's essential.
Well, you could appoint people to do it.
Well, we could.
We're going to need, so this actually 6-9 needs a review. I mean, it needs to be looked at in depth to figure out the next move. And it might not be a charter change, except that we might need, according to ordinance, placed in there if we are going in that direction. What's our move here? Do we, obviously we're not voting on anything at this juncture, but what's our course of action? To bring it up at council and find an action plan for 6-9? Councilor Forgy?
Well, Councilor Dolan made a very good point. It's extremely complex when you're looking at the magnitude of the project in regard to the legal powers and authorities of the Board of Selectmen. So my immediate response is, while I think it's a great idea to put a committee together, in our work, we do have access to counsel. So if this is something that I understand, I know the mayor's going to say we don't have the money, I know that. But if we want good work on this charter, we may have to pay for a legal opinion.
Well, remember, we get legal opinion on everything we do in this committee.
No, I'm saying not just a legal opinion on what exists, but an attorney to help us write the ordinance or pick the pieces apart to structure the ordinance.
So let's defer this to the clerk to talk about access to legal and go from that point. Does that sound all right? So Clerk Scott, let's talk about Board of License Commissioners and looking at a legal, not opinion, but a legal process for 6-9 before we move forward. All right, 6-11.
No, 10.
10's not on our agenda.
There's no changes. Okay.
So we have two pieces here, Councilor Forgy, as we move up. Did you want to go with 6-11? I told you to talk about 6-14. Where do we want to go? Because both of these had modified language that you worked on.
Yeah, and both of them are
pretty extensive.
Well, hang on just a second here.
You know, as we just were talking about 6-9, just a thought while Councilor Forgy's working on this. Early on, when we talked about counselors bringing forward each of these pieces, you know, and how it was done, that's an example. When one of these is a major undertaking, it would be like a counselor would say, I'm going to take on 6.9 and I'll bring it forward. And we had some counselors work on pieces, and Councilor Forgy worked on 6-11 and 6-14 because they were more than maintenance. It was, you know, some things are changing a word or changing a sentence, but when it's a restructuring, it's going to take a little more time. And that's, I think 6.9 just fell into that as we identified. And now we have two more coming up. And I'll allow Councilor Forgy to discuss either one because I think both are going to be kind of lengthy in discussion.
Okay, well, not that I want to push this off. Section 6 was where I was supposed to do my work and to contribute to the committee. Both of these are huge. The smaller piece would be the assessor's piece at this point. I'm also mindful of the time. I don't know what you have got. Well, we could start on the Board of Assessors. It's going to be a debate. It's going to have to go out to council for 611 is also going to have to go out to full council for discussion because that's public safety. So is there, not that I want to, but is there any, all right, let's just do assessors. That's fine.
All
I'll
right.
say public safety.
Let's, and public safety might take some additional guests. So
It's going to take a while.
yeah. So the other option would be, and this is me just, we could also go through the other 6s, 12, 13, 16, 18, 24, and then leave 14 and 11 to a longer version, start a meeting with 614 or 611, or we can take on one of them now. Councilor Forgy, I guess that would be your call as the person that's making these recommendations.
Well, actually, it's actually your committee's call. I mean, I will do whatever the committee decides.
No, I'm just saying we have to go through all of it. So, one way or the other. So, I mean, do we want to start one of the longer ones at this point, or do we want to clean up the rest of 6 and then work on those 2? Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I would rather work on the ones that just need to be cleaned up, and we'll save the others for the next meeting when you can start the meeting right off with all of this.
Does that sound doable? Let's go to 612 then, library trustees. So 611, note to our clerk's office and to Tammy, 611 and 614 should move up in the agenda. Let's start 614 as my lead in the next agenda. Okay, 612.
It went in section E, the library director suggested a more inclusive piece of assessment being done. So to move things forward in consultation with library trustees. So that's just for adding their input. Not only will policy and administrative control be involved, but also time at some point with the mayor and the board of trustees to help advise the library.
Anyone have any questions on that piece? Someone want to make a motion? Councilor Dolan, did you have a concern?
Just reading it one more time. So
yeah,
the
sure.
final
No, I don't want to push anybody.
would be as may from time to time be issued by the mayor with consultation of the library trustees. Just wanted to confirm.
Yes, that's right.
Can I ask a question? Because now I'm going to be the devil's advocate. We have time to time here. And we just eliminated time to time.
No, we didn't.
We left it. We left
it, Dan.
We left it in the end, right? Is there a problem with time to time here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just asking.
It's for snooty lawyers to write in.
Well, I'm glad we invited you.
To tell you about the snooty lawyers.
Yes, thank you. All right. Councilor Dolan, any other concerns with that? Councilor Elmer, did you want to make a motion or say something? I'm sorry.
No, I've got a baby making a lot of noise here, so I keep muting.
Oh, how nice.
I've moved to better Wi-Fi, so now I'm hearing what everybody says. I'll move that we make the change suggested in the sentence that starts responsibility, adding the phrase with consultation of the library trustees. I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded in section 6-12, section E. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I see that will send a positive unanimous recommendation for that change. Now, this next double asterisk piece, this is another where the library suggested deleting the sentence since an ordinance had been adopted. However, the sentence empowers the city council to adopt an ordinance. Therefore, it is suggested to remain for the benefit of the future reference. It's exactly what we just talked about. If we say that it needs to be there, then it keeps a check and balance. Any thoughts?
Sounds okay to me.
I recommend we just.
Seems fine the way it is. Yeah.
All right, let's move forward. No change. We don't need to vote on it. We don't need it to appear. We're just making we're just taking their recommendation, which is suggesting to remain as is. 6-13 Zoning Board of Appeals, Council Forgy.
No change.
Why is it here? Let me think. We've got nothing. I don't see anything. So 6-13, it's on here. There's no change, no recommendation. 6-14, we're going to hold, as we just spoke on. 6-16, Board of Health.
So I'm actually going to defer to David because this again was I love deferring to you, David. It's wonderful.
Great. You're doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, well, let me tell you. So this there was quite a lot of discussion about our Board of Health. And as you know, given some of the things that we've gone through in the past couple of years, there are a lot of questions as to exactly in law where all the responsibility lies. So having said that, there's a lot of different options here, and this is another one that could really open up on council floor for discussion. The committee went, I think, took a very conservative route, but there is a lot of room for discussion. So I'll just say that, turn it over to David if he wants to add anything to that.
Sure. So Glenn Ayers, who is a strong public Board of Health advocate, came to our meeting and thought that the health agent should be appointed by the Board of Health members themselves and under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health members, which would cause the charter to be changed. Right now, the Board of Health members are chosen by the mayor with your approval under the procedures that you normally follow, and the health agent is hired by the mayor and under the mayor's supervision. Now a Board of Health can sometimes be looked at as a town form of dealing with health issues. Some cities there is a city way of doing health. I think it's called the Department of Health. Let's see if I can find the language. Anyway, so number one, it was there so for historic reasons to show that we noted and looked at who controls the health agent. It is the mayor, not the Board of Health. If the council wishes to change that, they may, but we don't recommend that be the case. Under the strong mayor, that the mayor should be appointing and firing the health director. The bigger question is whether you want to change into a different form of, like the Board of Health becomes the Department of Health or something like that. And so that's in there for historic purposes as well. I want to digress for a second, Mr. Chair, and say this. as you go through this charter, you're seeing that there are several complex issues along with the ballot question, which was a complex issue. And you're going to hear other concerns about other sections, other parts of Section 7. And you're starting to see that your committee may not have the bandwidth or the power to explore all these things yourselves, nor is it your responsibility. Your responsibility is to deal with the ordinances, not the charter, let's say, except to do this good work. So you may need to suggest at some point, if you want to get a legal opinion, this would be the first one I would get. Whether or not you want to suggest there be another charter commission, which is an elected body of people who were elected to deal with the charter change in 2002, but we have had nothing since. So if you look at the tier level of work that goes into a charter, in order for the charter to be reviewed, we have the 0 number reviewing, which this committee did. And it's come back to you with recommendations of what to do, which is a good thing. You may not have the bandwidth yourselves or the power yourselves to make all these changes. The assessors is going to take a deep discussion. There's lots of things. You probably will have a list of at least 10 to 12 things as you get through this that need a big discussion. It might be a good recommend, and you have to go through a charter commission in order to change the election process. So that you have to do. You have no choice. You have a choice about whether to use a commission to make these other changes. So there's been some complaining, which I think is fair, that the people on the charter committee were appointed and therefore did not represent the will of the people. And so if you want all these things, the assessors, the this, the that, the Board of Health, whatever, I mean, if that's one of them, Section 7.7, Section 7.8 again, you might need to have a commission elected, which would take it out of your hands. And you could punt on the things that are more complex. The licensing commission, for example, could be another thing that's explored by the
right, because we just put that there. So, okay, thank you for that.
Good question,
David. Council Elmer?
David, you're suggesting an elected board, an elected commission? These would be members elected?
Yeah, by statute, a city, in order to make, there are certain changes where you have to have a commission. You don't have to have a commission for some of the changes we're talking about, but you would be inundated with the work of taking care of this stuff because it's so complicated. So the question is, politically and statutorily, do you want to suggest that these 5, 10, whatever the things are, be handled by a charter commission, which would be elected in November of 2022, would take a year to do the good work, come back with a recommendation that would then be placed on the ballot in 2023, and there'd be a whole sweeping set of changes that would be decided by the public, not by you, not by the council and the mayor.
So,
so that's a
David.
Political discussion as much as a substantive discussion.
Well,
I'm just giving you a way out.
I think in tonight's eyes, we're with this Board of Health. Where's where we are now? I think we need to move on. That this is not a question. This is not maintenance. This is a topic. This is another one that needs exploration to figure out what's needed, right along with license commissioners. This is a project. I will say that we are going to ask some questions and find out what the mayor's thought is on the health departments and that change. And this might go down the path that David just suggested. Our Councilor Forgy, thoughts on that?
I agree.
Okay.
I agree 100%.
Any objection, Phil, if we move on and we leave the Board of Health to a bigger picture? Councilor Dolan?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That was Board of Health. Council on Aging, 618.
The only change, they wanted to decrease the number of their members. So the request was to decrease it from 15 to 11.
Any discussion on that, Councilor Elmer? We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to recommend going to 11 from 15. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? We'll send that recommendation to go from 15 to 11 in section 6-18, section A. That was Council on Aging. Section 24, Mayor's Task Force Against Domestic Violence. Councilor Forgy?
Yeah, I'm just I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all right.
I'm
We're
reading-
jumping.
I'm reading this over.
Oh, here it is.
Now they're recommending that we have 3 new sections, which we can't talk about.
Where is Exhibit
Not
5
to,
attached?
not to this section. 3 new sections in section 6.
This is section 6.
Right.
Yeah, see, 624.
Right.
You have
And
to
then
have
it says double asterisk says new section 25, 26, and 27, but 25, 26, and 27 aren't on our agenda.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. It's not on the agenda. So, but are we going to create them? Does anyone see where this is going? Suggestions for amending this provision are provided to committee by the task force and are incorporated herein in Exhibit 5. Does anyone see that exhibit?
The exhibits are a separate document.
It's at the back of the, yeah. I don't think we have that available this evening. I just want to
Okay.
say. Okay.
So I recommend that we take this up at the next get together to figure out, and we'll have section 5, Exhibit 5 looked at. Councilor Dolan?
The exhibits are here. They're on the website. The Charter Commission website all the way at the bottom. I'm not averse to moving on anyway, but they are available.
What's our thoughts? Do we want to tackle this or do we want to wait?
Well, these are simple. The task force.
Okay, let's keep going then.
Straightforward. Councilor Dolan.
I cannot help you on this. I'm sorry.
Councilor Dolan, do you have the exhibit in front of you? Exhibit 5?
I do. Should I read it? Read the suggested language?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not the chair. Sorry.
No, that's right.
So, section 6-24. Mayor's Task Force Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, Section A. There shall be a Mayor's Task Force Against Domestic and Sexual Violence to advise the mayor with regard to the formation of public policy, public education, and outreach on domestic and sexual violence. The task force shall consist of 7 members, 3 of whom shall be appointed by the mayor with review by the town council as provided in section 2-10, and 4 of whom shall be appointed as provided in subsection C, and 2 alternate members appointed by the mayor.
Can you stop right there? Obviously, city council, not town council, and it's verbatim of what is there now, except adding the sexual violence and
the alternates, I believe.
and the alternates. Well, right? The alternates were addition. Okay, moving forward. Go ahead, Tim.
There is a second paragraph that looks like it's all new. Alternate members shall sit on the committee in case of the absence, inability to act, or apparent conflict of interest on the part of any committee member, or as part of regularly scheduled rotation among the regular members. Section B, in making the mayoral appointments, the mayor shall seek persons who are 1, experienced in the field of youth services, 2, members of women's and men's advocacy groups, 3, mental health providers, 4, probation officers in the district or superior court system, and 5, medical professionals on the staff at the Franklin Medical Center. The 3 members and 2 alternate members to be appointed by the mayor shall serve for terms of 3 years.
So alternates was added to that piece.
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like it's just the changing of the name, which does change the scope.
Yep.
And
Let's
the addition of the alternates.
yeah, let's keep going. Then I think we could move it forward if we're in agreement.
So I would move to accept the changes proposed in Exhibit 5.
And was that all? Was that the end of that?
In 25, yes.
It is, yes.
Okay. So do I have a second on that motion?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion has been made and seconded for section 6-24, Mayor's Task Force Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, as recommended by Exhibit 5. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can we walk that back, actually?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I was just
is the proposal to replace section, I'm sorry, I'm just going back and forth between the two documents. Is the proposal to replace sections A and B with the language that I just read, or to replace the entire section A through F?
It's not a replacement. It's a new section.
These are new sections, 3 new sections.
A new section.
1 new section?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think what Councilor Dolan just read were the changes to A and B.
Yeah.
So C through F.
We should clarify whether C through F are staying or whether they're going. Seems like at least D, E, and F are still important.
Yeah, I think I have it in front of me. I think everywhere that's bold should be added. And the rest of it should remain the same.
Okay.
I think you're right. So we're keeping the existing sections C through F.
We're changing
all in A and
exhibit 5, altering A and B, leaving C and F as is.
And you're changing the title to domestic and sexual violence.
Correct.
Yes. And I'd like to move to amend by replacing the term town council with city council, and by replacing the name Franklin Medical Center with Bay State Franklin Medical Center. I think that's the right term now.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That moves forward. Now they're asking for 625 with the recommendation of a Human Rights Commission. We cannot talk about any of that.
Sorry, I don't think we voted on the main motion of 624. I think we just voted on the amendment.
Okay, I kind of included into one giant one. Well, let's go back. No.
Just want to make sure.
Nope. Let's go back to the full motion that 6-24 be amended version as read in Exhibit V. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Covers us, Councilor Dolan. Will send a positive unanimous recommendation based on section V, Exhibit V amended for language in sections A and B. We're not going to talk about anything more on 25, 26, and 27 because it's not on the agenda. That would mean that we will stop at this point tonight. Any on changes to the charter recommendations? That leaves us with section 7 plus 611, 614, 2-6, and section 4, which we still need to discuss as they come back. We will start next time with 6. Anything under new business? Old business, I mentioned 2-8. We are still waiting for clarification on that. Our next meeting is December 8th at 5:30 at the City Hall meeting room or on WebEx. While we're talking about next meeting, I will be absent from full council meeting next Wednesday. Councilor Dolan, would you like to bring forward things from the last meeting at full council?
I think I can do that.
Okay, and so we're going to have on the agenda will be the appointments we did today and just a report on moving forward with the Jake break piece. And then we might have some stuff from the past. We got the attorney's opinion in on the last things we voted on. So those should be going onto full agenda. Not this section, because this has to go to the attorney, but the last sections we did. And if you could take care of that, that would be great. I will follow up with Tammy and you before, but I will not be available. Anything else? David, Chris, thank you very much for all that you do on this. Motion to adjourn.
So moved, Elmer.
Seconded by Dolan. All those in favor? Aye. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:21 p.m. Thank you all very much.